What's going on, everybody? It is Alex from Everything for iPod. A while ago on my channel, I built a Hackintosh and made a series of it. Showed you exactly how to put the thing together and get it functional. But I'd never showed you how to install the operating system. So in this video, we're going to learn how to do that. If you would like to know what components I used and how exactly to put the system together, you can check out my entire playlist using the link in the description. For starters, connect everything to your computer. Make sure you're connected to a power source. Make sure you have a USB keyboard and mouse connected, as well as a monitor. I recommend going with either VGA or DVI, as HDMI can be unstable in the beginning, as well as a UniBeast flash drive. Make sure that is plugged into a USB 2.0 port, not USB 3.0. If you need to know how to make a UniBeast flash drive, I'll put the link down in the description to my tutorial on how to do that. You can now boot up your system and enter your BIOS. So on a Gigabyte motherboard, that means repeatedly pressing the delete key on your keyboard. However, if you're not using a Gigabyte motherboard, look in your manual to see how you get into your BIOS. Every system BIOS looks a little bit different, but you should still be able to get the idea when looking at mine. Using your keyboard, navigate over to the Save and Exit tab and then load your optimized defaults. Then once you've done that, use your arrow keys and get back over to your BIOS features. Go down to CD and DVD ROM preferences and set the boot option number 1 to disabled. Use the escape key to go back and then go to hard drive BBS properties. Set boot option number 1 to your USB flash drive and then all the other boot options to disabled. Use the escape key to go back and then head up to boot option number 1, set it to the USB drive, and then set all the remainder boot options to disabled as well. Once that's complete, navigate over to the Peripherals tab and then set anything that says IDE to AHCI. So I already have done that, but if you have any settings that say IDE, make sure you switch them over to AHCI. We can now head over to the Save and Exit tab and save and exit our setup. We're done with the BIOS and now we should be booting into the UniBeast bootloader. Once in here, you may see a few options if you have other hard drives installed, but you just want to hit enter when you're hovered over your USB flash drive. So do that and then you should boot into the Mac Os10 Installer. Select your language and then head up to the top menu bar, click Utilities, and then select Disk Utility. Now we need to format our boot drive. So on the left, select the drive that you want to install Mac Os10 onto. For me, that's my 128 gig Vertex 4 drive. Head over to the Erase tab, make sure you're on Mac Os10 Extended Journaled, and then for the name it whatever you would like. So for me, I'm just going to name my boot drive SSD. Once you have the name typed in, hit erase and you're good to go. Be aware that if you've used your hard drive before and you have files on it, that you will need to back them up because they will obviously be erased. Once completed, you can X out of this window and then just continue with the Mac Os10 installation. Hit continue and then agree, just agree to the regular terms and conditions, and then select the drive that you wish to install Mac Os10 onto. So for me, that would be my SSD, and then you can just let it install. For me, this took about 20 minutes, but depending on your hardware configuration, this could take any period of time. Make sure you leave the UniBeast flash drive plugged into your computer, and then your computer will restart after the installation, and you will get back to the UniBeast bootloader. This time in the bootloader, instead of selecting USB, select the drive that you just installed Mac Os10 onto. So far, you've probably been thinking it's pretty easy to build a Hackintosh, but this is where everything changes. For some people, that will work just fine and you will boot right into Mac Os10. But for some people, you might have some sort of an issue. Basically, everything that can go wrong from this point on is dependent upon the hardware you used. Personally, that didn't work for me, so if it didn't work for you, reboot your system to get back into the bootloader. This time, we're going to turn off the graphics enabler. So hover over your boot drive and type in graphics enabler equals no and press enter. Again, I had no luck, so if you didn't boot, reboot your system and get back into the bootloader. Once in the bootloader, hover over your boot disk and type in -X, and that will boot you into safe mode, and hopefully this will work. If you still fail to boot, go ahead and remove your graphics card from your system. Then plug your monitor straight into your motherboard's graphics. Turn your system back on and get back into the bootloader, and then select your boot drive and try to boot. Personally, this worked for me, but if you still fail to boot after this step, go ahead and try the graphics enabler equals no and -X modes when you boot while plugged into your motherboard's graphics rather than your graphics card. Now you'll find yourself inside the Mac Os10 setup process, so you can just complete that exactly as you would when setting up a real Mac. However, one exception when you get to the network step, if you're using Ethernet, that might not work, and if you're using a Wi-Fi card where you need a driver, that might not work. Personally, my Wi-Fi card works with Mac OS X right out of the box, so if you want to buy that same part, I'll put a link down in the description. It makes it really easy, but if you don't have a compatible card or Ethernet connection, just go ahead and skip that step. We are now fully into our system, but we still have a lot of work cut out for us. If you have a working internet connection right after installing, head over to the Tony Mac x86 website, which I'll link down in the description, and download MultiBeast for Mountain Lion. If you don't have a working internet connection, download it using a different computer and transfer it over using a flash drive. This is by far the most annoying and hardest part of building a Hackintosh, installing all the right drivers. So this will vary depending on what hardware you have. If you happen to have the same exact hardware as me, you can follow the same installation process as me. However, you may need to read up on what to install. So I'll put the link down in the description to the article that really helped me out and helped me figure out what to install when using MultiBeast. First, check in the DSDT Database on Tony Mac x86's website, which I'll link down in the description, and see if your motherboard has a DSDT file available. If you have one available, go ahead and download it and just save it to your desktop. If you don't have one, it's not that big of a deal, but this is the easiest way to get everything running. My motherboard, the Gigabyte Z77X-D3H, did not have a DSDT file, which was not that big of a deal for me, so I'm not going to use one. Back in MultiBeast, select User DSDT or DSDT Free Installation. If you have one on your desktop, it will read it, and if not, it will just ignore it. So in drivers, I'm going to select Trim Enabler. This is something you need if you have an SSD. It will preserve the life of your SSD. However, you may not need that if you're not using an SSD. So really, you will need to read up on everything and see what they are used for. In graphics, I am going to enable something that will make my graphics card work. So as you know, I had to remove my graphics card, so I'm going to use the OpenCL patch, and I'm going to use the less than 2 GB version because my graphics card does not have more than 2 GB of video memory. I'm going to keep on saying this because I know some people will get confused. Do not select the same exact things as me here. You may need to select some different things, so use the link down in the description to help you choose what to use. You may need to restart your computer a bunch of times to get everything working and try out everything. I had to restart my computer probably about 20 times. You also want to select the Caviar bootloader no matter what kind of system you have, because that will be the only way to boot your system up. Now for system definitions, your Mac comes with the Mac Pro, your Hackintosh includes the Mac Pro system definition. If you want to change it, you can. However, don't use the Mac Pro 4,1 or 5,1 system definition. All the other ones should be fine. I know those two definitely do not work. System definitions, really not that big of a deal. I will show you how to customize about this Mac in a few videos from now. I'm working on that right now. So I would leave it how it is. I wouldn't even use the system definition. I would just leave it at the default. While I was going through the BIOS, I had a picture to the left of MultiBeast showing exactly what I used. That same picture is right here, so if you use the same exact hardware as me, you can pause the video and just use the same exact MultiBeast settings that I used. Hit continue and let MultiBeast install all the settings. Then go ahead and shut down your computer and reinstall your video card if you removed it, as well as pull out that UniBeast flash drive we put in the beginning of the video. Once in the BIOS, head over to BIOS features and then scroll down to CD and DVD-ROM priorities. Now you can enable your CD drive to be an alternate boot option if you would like that, but then head over to BBS priorities and set boot option number 1 to your boot drive and then number 2 and 3 to disabled. Go back and then head up to boot option and select your boot drive as boot option number 1 and make sure all the rest are set to disabled. Go over to save and exit your setup, and then your computer should reboot and you will have a fully working Hackintosh. If this video helped you out, don't forget to hit that like button as well as subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my future content. I will be showing you how to customize About This Mac to be a Hackintosh About This Mac in a video coming up very soon. If you missed any of my other Hackintosh videos, I will link them down in the description. You can check out the entire playlist of all the build videos, installation videos, and unboxings. Thanks guys for watching. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them down in the comments. I will respond to as many as possible. And also a great place to look for immediate answers is Google and the Tony Mac x86 forums. Thanks guys, I'll catch you in my next video.